Hey folks, this is Brad over at Myles Reading here. Just want to share with you a project we have in at the shop this week. So what we have here is a 2006 Nissan Pathfinder. Came in for overheating. It's actually the second time it came in for overheating. First time it came in, we found that there was no coolant in the system. It had intermixed with the transmission fluid, and we found all the coolant inside the transmission system. That happens because there's a cooler as part of the radiator on this vehicle that is notorious for having internal failure, and all the coolant goes into the trans. So what we ended up doing is replacing the radiator, completely doing the fluid exchange on the cooling system and rebuilding the trans. It was starting to slip on the customer, so everything was taken care of at that time. A couple months later, they give us a call back and say, hey, it's overheating again. We have them bring it right in, take a look at it. This time what we found were the head gaskets on the engine, unfortunately, got damaged with the original overheat concern. So at that point, we had to get into the motor a little bit here. So that's what we ended up finding. When you look at a head gasket on a vehicle, this is what they look like. So if we go down layers of the engine, this is the final layer before you get to the engine block. And what we start to see is the gasket material gets compromised in between the cylinders and it gets into the cooling system. This also lets exhaust gas get into our cooling system, which can cause random overheats and also a lack of coolant. So Amanda, if you want to come on over here, we're just going to look into the engine compartment a little bit more in depth. So this is the kind of severe work you have to do when you're doing head gaskets on the vehicle. You pretty much have to take everything apart down to the cylinder block here, where you can see the top of the pistons on an engine. So our technician Mikey has already reassembled the passenger side of this motor, and he'll be finishing up the other side here a little bit later on. But this is what we're looking at for a new gasket. You can just see all the damage and wear on these old ones compared to the new ones that we're going to be installing here. This is also a very good time on a vehicle to replace any small hoses that you necessarily can't get to easily with the rest of the engine put back together. Also, one of the most important things that you need to do when doing a head gasket repair on any vehicle is to replace the cylinder head bolts. These are very special bolts. They're called torque to yield bolts, which means when you put them in, they stretch a little bit. So they're one-time use bolt. Most times if you do not replace these bolts when doing a cylinder head gasket repair, it may come back on you with a cylinder head that didn't quite seal right. So this is just some of the bigger work that we do at the shop here that we see on a not every week basis, but from time to time we'll have to get into cylinder heads. So if you think you're having overheating problems or any issues, this might be going on with your vehicle, give us a call over at Myles.